Hi, you are listening to Baachu Talk, a podcast for government services professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and I will be sitting down with our government services leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn all about the values and collective impact in our society. Hi, you're listening to Baachu Talk, a podcast for government services professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and I'll be sitting down with the government leaders, outsourced business services leaders, GovTech entrepreneurs, voluntary community, social enterprise leaders, independent policy think tank leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, learn all about the values and collective impact in our society. Today's guest is Julie Ennis. Julie is Chief Exec of Sodexo's corporate services business across the UK and Ireland, and also holds the position of country president for Ireland. In her combined roles, Julie has responsibility for leading Sodexo's corporate services business across the UK and Ireland, as well as corporate governance, directorial responsibility for the various business segments that operate across the Republic and Northern Ireland. That's an interesting one in the current climate. So, with over 11,500 employees in over 600 locations in the region's corporate services segment, Sodexo, the company that she leads, the UK and Europe arm, provides clients with an integrated offering from workplace strategy, design, food services, cleaning, concierge to asset management, security, laboratory, grounds maintenance services, enabling clients to focus on their core business. Prior to joining Sodexo, Julie held numerous senior management roles with Bank of Ireland in sales, proposition development, strategy, operations for various divisions of the group. Julie is a strong advocate of diversity and inclusion, having held varied roles on Bank of Ireland's LGBT plus and gender balanced networks. An MBA graduate from the UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School, Julie holds many board and committee positions, to name a few: board member of Sodexo Ireland Limited, board member of Sodexo Finance DAC, board member of the Executive Institute of Ireland, committee member Leaders Group on Sustainability, PITCI. That's mouthful, Julie. I don't know whether you sleep, but welcome to Baachu Talk. Great to have you with us, Julie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So, Julie, let's talk about where were you born and your high school and education.
Sure, Bhaskar. Well, as you can tell, I have an Irish accent. So I was born and raised in Dublin, in Ireland. I am one of 6 children. I currently live in London with my partner, Donna, and our 2 dogs and 2 cats. So I've no children, but plenty of animals that also keep me busy. So in my younger days, Bhaskar, I went to a local comprehensive school, and the reason, I suppose, for that, most of my siblings, or all of my siblings, are deaf. So they all went to sort of deaf schools for girls and for boys. So I went, as I said, to a local comprehensive school. I went from there, actually not straight into 3rd level. I went from there, took an interesting diversion, and I had danced all my life, so ballet. Yes. So I got an opportunity with a scholarship to go to Merseyside Dance and Drama. So at the age of 17, I decided to delay my third level academic studies and went off to become a qualified teacher of modern and classical ballet. So quite a different type of story. And later on then, Bhaskar, I came back to Ireland and started studying and working, and did quite a lot of study actually throughout my 20s, and then finished most recently with an MBA, as you said, from UCD, Smurfit Business School. So quite a different journey, probably to many, but I've ended up in a good place, I think.
Totally, Julie. Let's just anchor that and let's just go through this. So, youngest of six children, how was it growing up in a family where you were the youngest, and then four of the six children, your siblings were unable to hear. Did you pick up sign language? How was it growing up in that environment?
Yeah, great question, Basker. I mean, to me, it was perfectly normal because that was my life. I didn't know anything else. So yeah, I mean, a very busy and lively household, very noisy household, actually. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but when you can't hear yourself, it means there's lots of noise. But yeah, it was perfectly fine for me. I mean, I think some of the challenges were that because my siblings, my older siblings, went to the deaf school, there wasn't a huge focus on third level education because at the time they couldn't really, there wasn't too many options for them. So it was very much about them getting skills in other areas. So they've all done great. They're successful in their own right. We were very happy family. So as I said, from my perspective, very good. Can I sign a little bit? I'd like to say I'm pretty good at lip reading. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm pretty good at lip reading because I've had to be, but sign language, a little bit. Yeah.
Got it. So how was it while playing together as a family? Communicating with your siblings and stuff, because corporate communications, we all talk about different. How did you gel with your with your siblings, and is there any interesting memories that you have growing up?
As I said, we were a very happy family. I was the youngest, so probably spoilt, if I'm honest, by all my older siblings. But I suppose we all were a very normal family. And actually, my elder siblings who were deaf, worked very, very hard actually from very young ages. So I think that's ingrained in us. I mean, for them, when we talk about communication is hugely important for them. Correct. So, for instance, weddings or important meetings that they may need to have, medical meetings, funerals and so forth, it's really important that they understand what's happening. So we put a real emphasis on making sure that there's an interpreter or a sign language interpreter for them. So there's a lot that we can do now. And I mean, look, times have changed a lot. Three of my nieces and nephews are also profoundly deaf. But now, like, one of them has just qualified as a microbiologist in UCD. And she's doing a PhD at the moment. Times are very, very different now, which is great, and it's really important. So yeah, they're fantastic. They really, really are.
Got it. And when I was reading your bio, what I found it was you did ballet from the age of 3. At the age of 3, did you really know that was ballet? I was jumping around, but I didn't know. My mom will say, stop jumping, stop pulling your legs. But age of 3 ballet, how did that happen?
Well, it was again, it sounds a bit strange when there's so much deafness in my family, but we're also quite a musical family. So it sounds a bit odd. But probably from my father. Yeah, so my mum put me into ballet at the age of 3 because she really liked musicals and musical societies. So I'm not sure I knew it was ballet, Basker, at the age of 3 either. But I absolutely loved it, and it became the love of my life throughout my formative years. And I think I learned a huge amount because anytime I talk about it, the resilience and the work ethic needed, perseverance in terms of, dancing through pain barriers, the confidence it gives you to be able to perform either on a stage or, be critiqued from people in terms of examinations. So for me, and it has definitely stood me throughout my career, all of the learnings that I got from dancing. And as I said, definitely the love of my life, but I learned fairly quickly I couldn't make a living or the living I wanted from it. So I had to go and get a real job, you know.
So when was the last time that you danced ballet? Do you have that memory?
Oh, God.
Yesterday?
No, I wish it was. I wish it was yesterday. Well, actually, interestingly, I did something a few years ago for charity,
Right.
where I trained for a number of weeks with a group of people of my previous employer, and we raised money for a children's hospital. And so that was probably about 4 years ago, and it was amazing. I was so unfit though, so unfit.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that was really, really good. But before that, probably at the age of about 22, 23. It's a long time ago. A long time ago.
No, because my roommate during my university days, Brendan, was in London School of Ballet, and he was a ballet dancer. So, and I always, while he was walking, you can clearly see he doesn't walk straight, right? He just walk like, you know, way. And I was like, how can you stand with your toe? You know, like, you know, like.
Well, there's special shoes. Don't forget.
That's it. So, from your ballet times, you know, I know through him, you know, there are some classics, Nutcracker here and there. And what was your favorite ballet moment? Do you have anything?
So if in terms of musicals and shows, is it?
Shows, yeah.
I mean, for me, so I qualified, as I said, modern and classical ballet. But my love, while I love watching classical ballet, so the Nutcracker, whatever else, I much prefer the sort of modern and jazz end of it.
Got you.
So if you think of Fame, I always think my college days in Liverpool were like Fame. It was amazing.
Right.
So yeah, I loved that side of it. So if I go to see a musical or a show, which I love, I really, really love, and I can't wait for the West End to reopen, I will always be drawn to that type of show where it's sort of much more modern and jazz. Yeah, love it.
Got it. And is there any dance musical that you say, Bhaskar, you should go and watch that, or listeners, I recommend that? Anything that comes to your mind?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Probably, I would say probably Fame the musical.
Right, got you.
If you can.
Yep.
I don't know if it's in London though.
No, I think we need to find that. Even though we can't dance like you, at least we can visualize.
I can't dance like that anymore either. So it doesn't matter.
I think that's good, Julia. I think it's good. It's always nice to have pleasant memories like that, you know, coming from a beautiful family, you know, happy family, moving on, you know, a musical career. And again, that choice that you took when you had the choice to get into university, but you didn't, and you followed your, you know, even though you say you followed your family tradition to go to third school, why did you make the choice? And then looking back now, did you feel otherwise, that maybe you should have gone for university?
No, I don't regret it for 1 second.
No?
I followed my dream.
Correct.
And not everybody gets to do that. I think, you know, lots of people, well, majority of people go directly into university. And maybe that is the dream for a lot of people, of course. But for me, dance was the love of my life. And here was this amazing opportunity, you know, for a scholarship. There was no way I was going to turn that down. And I don't regret it for 1 second, thankfully.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful, because there are so many people who are now with the current climate looking for alternative careers. I think your story will be a beautiful, inspirational thing for them to just say, hey, follow your dreams. You know, there's no right or wrong. Just because you go to university doesn't mean you have a bright career. And that's because I interviewed the Collab chair, the association of Collab, like Sheila. Sheila was in the same passion. You know what? The higher education colleges people go through, you know, you don't need to think just because you lost the university place you're doing that, you know, it's a choice. And I think your life epitomizes that journey beautifully. So let me go. Leaving from Ireland, was that the very first journey that brought you outside of Ireland, coming to Liverpool? And how did you go through that, living on your own?
Yeah, to live,
working to,
yes.
yes,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I was very young. I was 17, but a young 17.
yes,
So yeah, I mean it was scary, because
mm,
back in those days I used to get the boat and the train then from Holyhead
yes,
to Liverpool.
yeah.
Um and yeah, at a young 17, I'm quite small. So so I probably looked about 12. Um but yeah, it was strange. I shared a house with another Irish girl, a
Mm,
sort of a bed sit.
mm,
So
mm,
believe me, there was no luxury in this.
yes, yes, yes.
People probably wouldn't believe it the way it was. Like literally, you've got a little fridge in the room and
Mm,
little, those
mm,
little camp
mm,
cookers,
mm, mm, mm.
two-ring cooker. That's what we had. That's what we did. So it definitely was not luxurious, but learned a huge amount. And as I said, absolutely loved it. It wasn't for, well, I didn't get time to go partying too much.
Mm,
Packed a lot into the time I was there. So studied a lot, and
yes.
yeah, it was a fantastic time there. Yeah.
Because it's very rare to get that sort of foundation, living on your own and
Mm,
following your passion at a very young age. That build up the personality of who Julie is today. Like
yeah.
a I remember leaving my home, coming to UK for the very first time. Next day morning, you need to cook, clean, wash, iron, look after yourself. We take it for granted at home, but
Yeah.
when you come and accept, that builds up your own character. Then go find a part-time job, do your career, it's beautiful that you had this thing. So
Mm,
you were a valid answer. You were following your passion. At some point, it broke. You know what? I need to follow. As you rightly said, I just need to go on and have a better living standard.
yeah.
So you then chose Bank of Ireland, but 20 years with Bank of Ireland. Let's start from the very beginning. What was the very first role? How did you build the courage to get into a bank from a ballet? And from then on, let's talk about year by year by year to your last role at Bank of Ireland.
Okay, I had a lot of roles. That's gonna take some time. But yeah, so I was back from Liverpool, and I was
Mm,
teaching dance part-time,
mm, mm,
and decided that I needed to make some money,
mm,
and get the standard of living that I wanted. So I just applied to, there was a number of different big banks in I loved business, so I did business studies in school, and that's where my third level qualification was going to bring me anyway. So I decided, banking, financial services was an area that I was interested in. So, but
mm.
I didn't think I'd stay there 20 years, Basker. I thought I'd stay there maybe 6 months, 12 months, until I decided what I really wanted to do. But I joined a fantastic organization.
Mm,
And like everything, it's always the people that make the organization. But I joined a really great organization, and I got a lot of development opportunities
mm,
throughout my career. So I started, oh wow, I started in banking like as a teller. Um,
mm,
all those years ago, many moons ago. But my career then, without getting into every single role,
mm,
spanned lots of areas, from our distribution channels, so
mm,
our
mm,
face-to-face channels, online channels, um, customer propositions, strategy, sales. I mean, you name it. But
mm,
the big thing for me was to be as much as possible client facing. I never like to be too far away from the client. It's
mm,
just I can't operate any other way. I need to be close to the operation and where those relationships are. So
mm,
most, if I'd say 90% of the time,
mm,
in banking was relatively close to client facing in either retail and corporate. So
mm, mm, mm.
yeah, fantastic time. I spent just over 20 years there.
Yes.
But as I said, not in one role, in lots of different areas. And it's a bit like Sodexo. Sodexo is bigger,
Mm, mm, mm,
but lots of opportunity to move into different areas. And I like learning. I like being challenged.
mhm.
So that's always going to be attractive to me.
Totally.
So
Yes,
Yeah,
Julie.
yeah,
Julie, you made it sound so simple, right? When you started as a teller to finishing up in a very, very big leadership position back in BOI, how did you build that confidence and say, yes, learning is fine, but once you learn that there is a barrier that you hit, oh my God, I'm not in a comfort zone, I'm in a different zone. But now you learned and you are in a comfort zone. And now I need to learn something. How did you created your own career path within a larger organization? And what advice would you give colleagues who are like, you know what, there won't be if you apply for a role, you have to squeeze yourself inside something, but
yeah.
the way you have positioned yourself is you have created your own career path. Looking your 20 years there, share what advice would you give to colleagues who want to create their own career? And secondly, any interesting memories or projects or colleagues during that time who kind of gave you that path to succeed in BOI, please?
Yeah, great question, Bhaskar. So, in terms of my career has not been, one straight line. I think when I was very, very young, or very much younger than I am today, I thought my career would be one straight line, because the younger me probably thought it would be just easier. I just go up, 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 up. And I was quite, how to put it? I was quite ambitious, right, to do that. But I learned along the way that actually no career goes in one straight line. And for me, the more breadth I got across the organization and in different, I suppose, functions, the more attractive my skills were, of course.
Yes.
So I moved around the organization into different functions, and that's something that I say to the teams in Sodexo as well. Don't get siloed into one particular area, because it's a big organization. There's lots of opportunity, and I think so. Back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago. I love learning. I love being challenged. And there have been times in my career where I've been put into roles that I did not think I could do. I remember one particular role back in Bank of Ireland, and I literally started with a blank sheet of paper. It was a new role, and I'd been asked to go in and lead it. And honestly, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. And I think lots of people go through that in their career. I'd be surprised if I came across anyone who has not. And maybe if they haven't, I'd say they haven't been pushed hard enough then. You always need people that are going to push you out of your comfort zone. And it's important to find those people. So for me, there's been a lot of learning. There has been absolute challenge. But I've loved I won't say I've loved every role I've been in. I've loved most of the roles I've been in. I have learned a lot from every role I've been in. Yes. I know what I like doing and I know what I don't like doing, which is really important, particularly for later on. So I would give the advice I would give people is, always be open to opportunities. Find those people who are going to push you outside of your comfort zone, because that's when you really learn. That's when you really develop. And work for an organization that, wants to give people opportunity. And I've been very, very lucky, fantastic with Sodexo, and previously in my former employer as well. I've been very, very lucky. Maybe luckier than most. I don't know.
Totally. Again, Julie, there are people who tend to be complaining about, hey, I've been lost, I've been undervalued, overworking, etc. And this is a very powerful message for those colleagues. You need to create your future. You need to build your future self. Nobody else will. Find the right sponsors, know your blind spots, know your key traits of what you like, what you don't like, and build it from there. That's very powerful. You entered Sodexo after a 20-year career. You entered Sodexo at an amazing time. It was 2 weeks before COVID hit, and 1 year now with Sodexo. Talk us through about your journey. First of all, how are you coping in this lockdown? How are you looking after yourself? Then how are you inspiring your colleagues to do the same?
Yeah. So I joined on, oh wow, actually today is my 2-year anniversary. I've just noticed, 1st of February.
Yes.
So I joined Sodexo 2 years ago, as you said, Bhaskar, originally as the managing director for the Irish business, and country president for Ireland. And on the 1st of March, took over as CEO, as you said, for the UK and Ireland corporate services business. So it has been a whirlwind because COVID, as you said, hit literally 2 weeks later. So moving into a new role in the middle of a pandemic is probably not how I would have originally anticipated new role. But you know what? It has meant there have been some positives, okay, with it, because I had to immerse myself in the role really, really quickly, and probably much quicker than I ever would have gotten to do. Because as you can imagine, back at the start of the pandemic, every business was just looking a day at a time, because things were changing so quickly. So, you know, it has been, without doubt, it has been challenging in some parts. We've had to make some tough decisions, like lots of businesses, around people, and that's unfortunate. But you know, we couldn't necessarily stay away from that. But I think what the last sort of 9-10 months have shown is what we can do, and what we can do at pace. So, you know, again, the type of person I am, anyone that knows me, I like to move fairly quickly. So what COVID has done has sort of accelerated changes that we were already making on the back of trends that we were already seeing. So we've been able to deliver new services, acquisitions, propositions in a very, very short space of time, Bhaskar, which is great. And for me, you know, the important thing is that we don't lose that. We don't lose that energy and that momentum. I don't believe we will, because you know, I have a fantastic team, and it's not me, it's the team. So we're all aligned. We have our strategy. We are very focused. We're delivering. So I think if there are any positives to come out of COVID, they are probably it. But I would not like to take away from the major challenges and, you know, very sad situations that we've had, and that all of, you know, everybody has had over the last 9 or 10 months. It has been difficult, no doubt.
Totally, Julie. Being a sociable person, being the person who's client facing and having the conversations in your home through Microsoft Teams or through Zoom, and to look after yourself, you know, how did you cope yourself? You know, how did you, you know, manage your own self in this COVID lockdown? Yeah,
so I, as you said, I'm a sociable person. I like being out with people. So the most difficult and probably disappointing piece for me over the last, since I've come into the new role, is that I haven't been able to physically meet our clients and our teams on the sites, but I've done lots of virtual. So lots of virtual meetings, which is great. Still not the same, but is great. So how have I managed myself? I'm quite an optimistic person, and I'm quite a resilient person. I think those years of dancing, that's where that comes from, Bhaskar, the training and that discipline. So I'm quite resilient, and I've needed to be, and I'm sure every leader has needed to be throughout this time. So yeah, I mean, I keep myself going because I know we're going to come out of this. You know, it's going to be a different world. It is a different world. But I think, you know, with that, there will be other opportunities. So that's where my head is focused, as opposed to all of the reasons why something can't work or can't happen. I think it's just important. The longer it goes on, we need to make sure that we maintain that sort of motivation with our teams. I think that's difficult. Everybody's finding it mentally difficult, in the third lockdown. So we're doing a lot around mental health, mental well-being, communication, because you have to keep communicating in times of uncertainty. It's difficult for people. But yeah, as I said, we're going to come out of this. You can see the light is at the end of the tunnel. So that's where we're focused. That's where we're heading.
Totally. I think anybody who's listening to this episode or any Sodexo colleague, they will be going through that energized Julie, and they all want to have that little piece of Julie in themselves to keep them going, which is the main reason I scheduled. We are lucky to have this on a Monday morning. So I'm all boosting up for the rest of the weekend. So yes, Julie, I know and I'm sure when you started in March, you had a plan for Sodexo. Hey, my 90-day plan, my one, and it all went up in the air, I think, when COVID started, right? And then you collectively brought your team together. And so what have you observed lately in this COVID environment in the past 1 year that reminded you that people are kind or people are good within Sodexo, outside Sodexo? Any stories, shout outs?
So I think there are probably too many, Bhaskar, to, I think what we have all observed over the past 9 months is nothing short of, quite brilliant and commendable. I mean, if you just look at what the NHS are doing, what the health service in Ireland are doing, because I cover both, how our teams have just, really rallied around each other. I mean, we have thousands of people who have redeployed into some other segments, and say, for instance, in healthcare, into our test centres. And, I constantly hear, because as you can imagine, different parts of the business will have different challenges on different days and different weeks. And there's just a real enthusiasm to support each other. The amount of fundraising we've been able to do for charities and for our Stop Hunger Foundation in the midst of COVID is, again, commendable. When people, you could argue that people are focused on different things. So, I mean, there's just so much. I mean, I don't think I could pick out one particular story, Bhaskar, but I you know what, I think everywhere, whether it's in Sodexo or other organizations or just normal people, I think there's an unbelievable amount of kindness, and what this has done is really brought the focus back on people.
Correct.
In every where it should be. And everything that we try to do is centered around people. And every organization across the globe has had to focus on how do they get the best out of their people, their well-being, their productivity, and has probably got them to, I suppose, reset their people strategy or their workplace strategy. And I mean, it's just about making sure that we support and mind our teams, and they give back. You can see that.
Totally. I think just to get into your normal week schedule, Julie, if you look into your calendar today, I mean, like, I'm sure there are enough back-to-back meetings, right? And we all attend meetings during daytime and do the work in the evenings or during the weekends. It has become that norm. So how did you kind of build that structure in COVID, as being a leader? And the more structured we are, the more structured people around us will follow through. And how is there any changes that you need to make into your own lifestyle, work lifestyle, career lifestyle to help you to adjust into COVID environment?
So yes is the short answer, but I'm far from perfect in this. So I think at the start of COVID, everything sort of went a bit crazy. And as you said, meetings back to back from 7 to 7, and then you work after that, which is not sustainable. Absolutely not sustainable for people. And I don't want that for my team either. So over, throughout the months, we purposely looked at, where our teams were spending their times. I know couple of the MDs that I have spoke a lot to their teams about making sure they put time in during the day to go for walks or to get some exercise in the daylight, as opposed to because we're in the winter. So we did put quite a lot of focus in terms of meetings, walking meetings where you can be out on the phone. So because you don't need to be in front of the laptop for every single meeting. So I think we've had to educate ourselves and be a little bit more disciplined. And again, trying to make sure that we're not doing meetings outside of core hours. It is difficult. Bhaskar, and I am guilty, I have to say. I'm far from perfect here, and I need to do more myself. I know that. But for our teams, yes, I believe we've put good structure in place, because otherwise people get burnt out, and you don't get the best from people. So we've had to put a conscious effort on it, but there's more to do. There's definitely more to do.
Definitely. And I think in working from home comes with its own baggage, because work home, for until 1 year, 18 coins that we all were asking, hey, I need to work from home. But now we all are tired of working from home. We just need to go and work somewhere. We all need to dress up so that we get that slide thing.
Exactly.
So that's brilliant. So, and I think Sodexo is blessed to have you, and you are blessed to have Sodexo, and then it's both on both sides, Julie. So, and the other thing that you are a big advocate is, you not only made inclusivity and diversity part of Sodexo, but you also been a champion for LGBT and other things. If you could spend like a few minutes on that, why it's important to make it inclusive among people, and your principles around it.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am a big advocate of inclusion and diversity. So in all forms, Bhaskar. So I mean, there's a couple of things that are close to my heart. So one, I'm a gay woman, and two, I'm a woman. So gender diversity, LGBT, but as I said, diversity in every form. And the reason being, because it's right. For me, yes, there are the business benefits in terms of getting better decisions, diversity of thought. It's proven that we get better results from having diverse teams. But if we just leave that aside, because, for me, it's about doing the right thing and making sure that people get opportunities, irrespective of where they come from or their sexual orientation or male, female. So when I was in Bank of Ireland, I was heavily involved in the gender balance and LGBT networks, and in Sodexo as well. I sit on the advisory committee of our So Together network, which is gender balance. And Sodexo has done amazing work right across diversity and inclusion. So I'm sort of in awe as to what they've done on a global scale, or what we've done, rather, I should say, on a global scale. But for me, it boils down to giving people opportunities. We have so much talent in the organization, but we also, lots of people naturally have different biases, and it's making sure that we raise the awareness about biases in every form. But it's not about just raising awareness for diversity and inclusion, it's concrete action. For example, I I've said this, and whether it's right or wrong, it's just my own view. I'm not a big part. I don't necessarily like targets when it comes to things like gender balance, but I recognize that in order to move the needle, that we have to make sure that targets can work for things like that, and they have worked. So in Sodexo, for example, we have a target to get to over 40% of our senior leaders being female.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're pretty much there. And now it'll be, get to 50-50, why not? And the reason I don't like targets is because I believe it should happen anyway, but it's not, it's about action. And I think there's more that we can do. And even in the FM industry, you talked about it at the start. I remember, and I'm not going to quote which meeting it was, but I was on a call with industry leaders from our industry, not that long ago, and I was the only woman on the call.
Correct.
Which was a little bit scary. I did say it to them, by the way. That's we need to change that, because there's so much talent out there and within our business. And it's about getting the best results. It's about advocating for diversity of thought, because I don't know everything, and I want to make sure that my opinions and my thoughts are challenged so that we get the best results. And that's what having a diverse team is going to do. So yeah, I am a big advocate for diversity inclusion, but I do, because of my own situation as well, Bhaskar. So I am biased in that sense.
Julie, you made me very kind of emotional there, because there is always a compelling event that makes people act, and in your case, this is it. And I remember on my very first day to work, I was egged. There were 3 eggs that was thrown at me, and my neighbor was in UK, and in my neighborhood they didn't include me because I was so-called the only black man in my neighborhood. And as you rightly said, that kind of bias exists at all levels. And just 4 months ago, just before Christmas, I was invited to a round table, and I was said, who invited you here? And how come you're here? That was the very first question from the chair of the meeting, because I was the only non-white, there was no women in the round table, and I was the only non-white person in the meeting room, let alone I can feel a woman entering that, and then LGBT, you go to the next level. There is a lot of work that needs to be done, and that's the world that we live in. So anyway, so that's very powerful, Julie. Thank you for that. Before we end part 1 and move to part 2, let's just touch 1 or 2 minutes around the other board committee positions that you hold. Ireland, as you know, because of Brexit, you have Republic of Ireland. How do you bring it together? That's number 1. Secondly, let's also talk about other parts of being a board member of Executive Institute of Ireland, and also Leaders Group on Sustainability, etc. A few lines about it, but I'm more curious about, when we talk UK and Ireland, you own Ireland, which is very rare in our industry to own UK and Ireland, because we have 2 parts. Post Brexit, do you have to make some adjustments around it?
Yes. So in Sodexo, Ireland, or Republic of Ireland, is a separate legal entity. So Sodexo Ireland Limited, Bhaskar. So and Ireland is a separate country. So it has a different supply chain, and and we need to make sure that it gets the support of the resource that we have in the UK, but also that it has its own resource and can stand alone on its own 2 feet. So it's a great business that we have in Ireland, mainly corporate clients, and we have some schools and universities, and a little bit of government business as well. But it's Brexit has been, of course, something that we've had to consider, particularly around supply chain and the movement of people.
Correct.
But we've been working on this, Bhaskar, for the last, probably a couple of years at this stage, because Brexit was coming for quite a while. eventually it's here.
Yes.
So, in terms of any impact on people, we had to make sure, we've done a lot of work to make sure that there wouldn't be an impact of people, if they were crossing borders and things. As I said, the biggest piece for us was probably more around supply chain, to make sure that we weren't going to be impacted too much from goods coming in or out of the UK. Luckily, touch wood, it's early days. But we seem to be okay in the main, because a lot of our so as I said, our supply chain in Ireland is quite local anyway. There's always going to be some small areas where we've had to substitute different products, but we've done a lot of work with our suppliers in Ireland. Yes, then from a sort of my governance, I have the UK and Ireland. So it's, again, trying to make sure that we're very inclusive, because the UK is much bigger, as you can imagine, than Ireland. I don't want them to feel like the poor relation, because they're not. As I said, it's a great business. And when I was coming into the role, it was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I had Ireland, because, well, I'm Irish, so again, I'm biased. I have to admit, but we've great clients, great client relationships, a great team, and we've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of work with. So yeah, it is unusual, but it works. It works really well, and I think we have the new MD in Ireland, a guy called David Fox, is embedded into our leadership team from a UK and Ireland perspective. So it works really well. And I'm very proud to have Ireland under my wing. Very proud. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. So that closes part one, Julie. When we come back, we will talk about the 3 things not many people know about you: your hobbies, interests, few random questions about anything and everything, and people in your life, and we'll just go from there. So that's about it for this one. So thank you for joining today, and I'll speak to you later this week.
Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Please do visit baachu.com/Baachu Talk podcast to this specific episode link to everything that was mentioned in this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share Baachu Talk podcast with your loved ones. We will see you at the next episode with another special guest. Until then, it's Bhaskar Sundram from Baachu signing off.